Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Scandalous Delights to another episode with me, your host, Eena. And we have the absolutely lovely and amazing Sue Jones. I'm totally skipping your middle name because I don't want to Roger it. Sue Wynne-Jones. Is that correct?
Very close. Sul Wynne-Jones, yeah. So you're
Sue
doing well.
Wynne-Jones.
Good.
That's even better. Okay, cool. And so we are yet here to actually talk about these conversations, which are candid, unedited, unfiltered, but things that we have going on with us, with ourselves, that we've experienced in our lives, that might be an invitation to something different. So welcome, Sue. I'm so excited to have you on board.
Thanks for having me. And, I feel like, because it's scandalous, I feel a little bit naughty for being here, It's good. I like it.
That's good. Well, we all feel a bit naughty, don't we? Like being on the planet.
Exactly. We're like, there's all these rules that we can, break, and they're there to be broken, and, it's just too tempting.
I like where you're going with this. So tell us about a rule that you broke that worked, or like what did that create?
Well, I get okay. I mean, I guess one of the things that I would say, it's probably, a lot of people live by the rules and regulations, but I think a lot of us who are different just don't function from that. And it's like, it's not really real for us. So I'd say I'm breaking rules on a daily basis and probably don't even know it. But, I think it is that thing of just being willing to, look outside the box of what everyone else considers, normal and real.
Yeah, that is so interesting because, when like COVID was like going on like peak, at its peak, and I'm in India and you're in Australia, and we both have had our shares, like the regions have had their share about the COVID going on. And this friend of mine from years and years ago called me up. We spoke to each other after a long time, and she was like, how's it around your area? What's going on? And it took me a moment to go, oh, you know what? Like, I don't seem to have the same problems or issues that everyone else seems to be having, or even have those conversations on a daily basis. Like that, they don't even figure in the world that most of the people might be having. And I was like, oh, I might be a little different, more different than I pictured.
It seems like, most people sort of live for the trauma and drama, and, when you don't function from that as what's valuable, you sort of seem to have a different reality, and you don't get what other people are choosing and they don't get what you're choosing. But, that's, I guess, just part of being different.
Yeah. And what was interesting is that I don't think many people know that it's okay not to have a problem, or realize that they don't really have a problem.
Yeah.
And that's scandalous.
Yes. I remember the first time that I realized that, and I was at a choice of possibilities class, and I was in the car with Brendan Watt and Megan Hill, and I was just asking them, I was like, guys, I don't think I've got any problems. And they were like, okay, great. Well, what can you create now? And I was like, all right, awesome. So, it sort of is that thing where, we do create so many of these problems for ourselves, and they are just creations and inventions. And when you get over it, you can just have fun and, have ease and space.
Yeah. Even if no one else is using it. Because it took me a few classes, like I did quite a few classes with Christopher Hughes, and all these names that we are saying are wonderful people that we get to play and create with, and who are also Access Consciousness certified facilitators, and we'll share the links to these people and what they have going on if you would like to know more about them. But Christopher Hughes is an amazing, amazing facilitator that I get to create with. And I've attended quite a few of his classes. But like, he's like the leader of Right Voice for You. And I attended quite a few classes where he went, you know what your problem is, like to everyone in the class. So you don't have any problem. And I would just giggle and laugh away. If it's making me laugh, there might be something true about it, which was so interesting because that's not how we learn that what makes you laugh and smile is what's true for you. Would you like to say more about that?
I mean, I think you said it, you said it brilliantly, but I do get that, not having a problem is probably one of the most scandalous things that you can, do and be and have really. And it's kind of almost considered like a wrongness for a lot of people, who are functioning from this reality as real and true, if you don't have a problem. Because when you don't have a problem, you don't fit in with anyone, and there's no way to like connect with if you don't have a problem. So yeah.
Yeah, you won't have too many friends.
No. But you'll have a much better time.
True story, true story. There was this amazing conversation that I want to thank you for your conversation with and your question and the space that you were willing to be in the CF class, in the Certified Access Consciousness Certified class that just happened. And I'm wondering where there was something about that is there something that you would like to talk about in regards to that? Like for me, it was this, and I've caught myself every now and then going, what would it actually be if I was allowing my being to step out and just allowed it to go, spread out and play.
Yeah.
And so thank you for that conversation, because that shifted so much for me, where you start becoming aware of where you're doing rather than being, and what that changes. How's it been for you, and what's that?
Yeah, so I mean, the conversation that we had was at a facilitated training, and I was talking about something that had come up, with my business, where it's like I knew something needed to change, but I didn't really have the information or the awareness of what that was, and I wasn't really reaching out to the people around me to ask for a contribution or anything, and it had a lot to do with like trying to maintain what was rather than create with what was actually available at the time. And it was a kind of a moment where I really needed to be vulnerable with myself and with the other people in my life, and just really go, hey guys, this is what's going on in my life, and can you please like help me with this, and can you contribute? And something that I think I'd sort of been creating for a while without really acknowledging it was like an image of what I thought I needed to be like a successful facilitator or a successful business person. And Gary Douglas, the founder of Access, said, it's never been about that for you. And it's like you've been negating the being that creates. And so yeah, I mean, I think sometimes it's just I guess you just lose your way, and I think I lost my way a little bit with things. So it was a really great reminder of what's like important for me, and also just that the universe is there to contribute, and sometimes it's as simple as asking the people that are right next to you.
True. And it is so true, because we haven't really met that much or created with each other that much, but like literally directly. But you've totally been sort of a presence in my life. I would like to acknowledge that. But a lot of it had to do with your being. It's the being that you be in, the space that you invite to. And yeah, that is, it was a gift for me because it's exactly what you said, where we go into what we think we are supposed to do and how we're supposed to show up and what we're supposed to show up as, rather than looking at what's actually true for us. And the interesting thing is that what is actually true for us is what creates something different and something greater. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah. And I mean, we're not really taught that that's a valuable product. We're often taught that it's like everything that's outside of us that is a valuable product. And when we talk about being, it's like Eena said, what's actually true for you. And if you were choosing more your life from that place, like, you would probably have a much more authentic connection with yourself and with the other people in your life and with everything really that you choose to create. And it's very easy to wander from that path, but that path is always there and available to come back to. So yeah.
I'm glad you said that. It's always available for you to come back to, where you have that sense of like, oh, I'm not feeling like me, but then you get a sense of, oh, I'm back. Yeah, there's this. I used to do this communication design, like for different businesses, like from small businesses to big ass businesses that multinationals have been around, and I would do. I would create their communication, like their communication design, and everything that went with it, whether it was website, graphics, like whatever areas and platforms. And there was always this thing about that I used to keep feeling the gap, and I was aware something else was possible, is where I would ask them to give me the information of what was like about them, and there was always about, but that's fine, but this is what we want to portray and project and create as an image. And it was so interesting to me because that creates, like, you've decided what you are and what you're creating is not good enough. So you have to create yourself as this sort of a visual image or something that you think that people would buy. But it's actually like people can see through that mostly, or maybe not. People who like
I mean, I think people that are aware definitely can. And I mean, talking from like, if you create an image that you are, relying on, it generally is something that doesn't allow for much to change. Whether, like, if you're being your business, you can change anything at any time, and you have the freedom of that. But yeah, an image, like, it requires a lot of energy to maintain an image, whereas being is very easy because it's fluid. It doesn't have like a solidity to it, and like the change is part of, I think, creation as well, when you're actually being.
What are the ways that people could tap into, or you said something there which was being your business? Could you say more about that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, like, if you recognize, most often we're going to be able to more easily recognize when we're not being, because it's going to have a sense of, generally when you're being you, there's a sense of lightness to things. And when you're not being you, there's a sense of heaviness there. So if you can tap into, what's actually light for you, that's one way that I would suggest. And then also just, you'll sort of have this knowing that what you know is possible. If you're not creating that, you'll know, like you'll know if it's less than what you know is possible. And those are probably the areas where you're not totally being you with your business and or with your life in general, really. And so I would say just start by asking for, okay, so what would it take for me to be me with this? And see what shows up. And be willing to just acknowledge where you're not being you with something, because until you acknowledge it, it's like, it's much harder to change it. So, it's not about judging yourself or making yourself wrong. It's just going, hey, okay, in this area, I'm not being me. So what would it take?
I love that. Yeah.
And it's also not really definable. Like you can't really because everyone's different and everyone creates differently. And, a lot of what we do is look for, how did this person create this? What was the method and the formula and the, how
and
do I
you
do
repeat it.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like, that doesn't really work when everyone's completely different, because you might have a much greater way of creating it and you might have a way different path of getting there. But, if you go on the adventure of finding out what that is for you, you're going to get so much awareness along the way and you're going to be greater as a result of it.
Yeah. True. So, what are the questions that people could ask to get? And you've already given us few, which are really amazing. But what are the other questions that people could ask for a more sense of okay, let me ask you a different question. What is business for you? Like, what is business?
Well, I would say it is well, to me, I kind of see it as like a way that you can interact and engage with the world, really. So, like to me, it's like you have the world and then you have, you, and then you have a business, and the business is almost like a pathway between those two things that allows like a connection, an interaction, and an engagement to be there. And so, that's really how I see, that's how I see business.
I love that. Yeah, it is that, right? So, which is so different from the sort of give and take uh, scenario. It's more like, yeah. So, say more.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a great point that you bring up, like with the give and take, because, a lot of people are doing things from the point of view that if I do this, it means I'm going to get something, or if I give you this, it means, I'm going to get something. But like what I've noticed is if you're willing to follow the energy with your business, you will do things that maybe don't make sense, like from a logical, linear point of view. But if you are willing to follow the energy, it creates like futures and contributes in different ways that might not make sense at the time, but more often than not in the future, you actually receive the awareness of what that created. And so it's really being willing to step out of creating from a place of knowing what is going to show up, but actually, having a bit of an adventure and finding out what it actually creates, like what your choice creates as a future.
What your choice creates as a future.
Yeah.
Say what?
Well, so I mean, if trying to think of an example. Okay, well, I mean, so for most of my classes that I do that are like over 2 days or something, I'll say to the people on those classes, look, you can call me at any time, and have a conversation, and if there's things coming up in your world, I'll do my best to deal with it. And so I have people calling me all the time going, can you help me with this? Can you help me with this? And like if you looked at all of the people that I talk to all of the time, like financially or whatever, like that doesn't really make much sense. But the people know that I'm there for them, and they know that I will contribute to them, and they know that they can always call me, if they've got something going on. And that creates an energy that, generates a different possibility with business. And, I learned that from, access consciousness and, doing facilitated classes with Gary and Dane and everything. And, so these are these different ways that we can actually contribute or make a different choice, and it creates a future. But it might not look like it's creating much at the time, and you often will not get the feedback of what that creates until way later into the future.
Which is I'm so glad you said that, because which is so different, and it is something that I've been strengthening as a muscle. It wasn't always there, or it was there and I let go of it, and now, like you said, getting back to more sense of what's true for you. What you said there, it has a sense of the willingness to be there for each other, which is seeming like a rarity in the world, or it seems like people are wanting more of that since whatever's been going on in the world. But if you actually look at it, it is this sense of the willingness to be for each other. And what would that even be like? Like, it's not from the definitions of what I grew up at. Like, for me, being for each other was like being in each other's faces all the time and being in each other's business all the time. Wasn't much space. Growing up in a big Indian family, but could you say more about what that is?
Well, I think a lot of us have been taught that being there for someone is, basically like what you have to cut off about yourself in order to, make sure that you're like looking after other people. Whereas, if you're truly able to be there for someone, you're totally there for you. And if you know what that is and you have that for you, then you're actually able to be that for others, because people can sense whether you're there, with an agenda or, something else that you would like from a situation, or whether you're truly there for them.
And it's sort of you don't, because it's like you are not being yourself, and it's almost like, so they can't be themselves either. But what you're talking about is a very different space, where you get to be more of you and they get to be more of themselves.
Yeah. And like a lot of people as well have trouble receiving contribution or assistance from people. So it's also that thing of like being willing to give people whatever they can receive, because sometimes that's one of the most difficult things for people. Sometimes people expect it, sometimes people receive it really well, and a lot of people are like, no, don't do that, I don't want to feel like I have to owe you something. But truly contributing to someone is giving them what it is that they desire, whatever that is.
True. There's just so much space in this conversation. Where would you like to go?
I don't mind. Is there anything else that you would like to cover? I mean, I don't have a specific agenda or anything. So if we're done, we can be done, or if there's more, we can do more.
Okay, cool. So are we done, or is there more? I think it's like a choice at this point.
Yeah.
Cool. So what classes do you have coming up?
Classes I have, so I'm an X-Men facilitator and also a Talk to the Animals facilitator. So I have some classes in both of those specialties. And I'm also creating a gentlemen's club call, which is for men only and just for the first one. So that's something that's coming up as well. So yeah, there's those three specialties, and I also do, lots of other classes in between. So
So what is being a gentleman?
So there's some books written by Gary Douglas and Dane here. One's called Return of the Gentleman, and the other one is called The Gentleman's Club. So the classes that we do are based on those books, but really, for a lot of men that are different, there's not really a place where they have a voice. So what we're looking to create is for them to have a voice, and to be able to have some conversations about things that are going on for them in a way that they're also honored. And we often do calls with women as well, but this is the first time we're doing a men's only, so it's going to be interesting to see what comes out of that.
Oh, this one's only for the gentleman.
Yeah, just
literally.
This. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. So for all the people, all the men out there who've always known that they're gentlemen, now's your chance.
Yes.
And could you also say a bit about X-Men?
Yeah, so X-Men are basically, the different ones, the ones that have never really fit. And sometimes they've been labeled with disabilities like ADD, ADHD, OCD, or autism. And basically, most of what they've considered about themselves that's wrong, turns out it's usually an ability that they have. And so the X-Men classes are really about, discovering those abilities and changing your point of view from being wrong to, what's right about me, I'm not getting.
Cool.
Yeah.
That is one of my favorite questions. Is there an example that we can share with everyone so they get a sense of what that would be?
Yeah, so if you do something, for example, that I don't know, you might be judging yourself for, like you're not doing it correctly or you can never get it right, you can just ask, all right, so what's right about me that I'm not getting? And you might start to receive the information about how that difference is actually a gift, or how it could be perceived in a different way that allows something different to show up. So we often have things that we judge about ourselves and that we think is wrong about ourselves, but often that's just a sort of like a projection from this reality. So what if it wasn't a wrongness? What if it was actually a strongness, and you could explore it and see what shows up from there?
I like that. When you were talking about it, what popped for me was that I could never really focus. And I thought that was like the biggest wrongness about me, because I could never sit. My parents would try and teach me math, and I would be in a million places. So what would you say that is?
Well, from looking at that from an X-Men perspective, it's like focus is, basically putting all your attention on one thing, but X-Men have the ability to have their awareness across multiple things simultaneously. And it actually takes a lot more energy to focus on one thing than it does to be aware of everything. So it's actually a gift, because you can be aware of everything that's going on, and you don't need to focus on any of it. You can just be aware of all of it.
How does one do that? So one of the things that I'm noticing when I'm recording these podcasts, like that I try at times to focus, and then it just fluctuates between this and that. This is a one-on-one private session time now. Do you mind?
Of course not.
Okay, cool. So how can I have more ease with it? It's easier for me when I'm not looking at the screen. I'm looking everywhere and then I can. But how can I be that while even looking at the screen?
Well,
And
so, let's look at let's look at it. Is it a problem? Is it a problem for you? Is it a problem for me? Is it a problem for anyone watching or listening?
no.
So what if it's...
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you would like to have something different with it, what is it that you would actually like to have different? Because what if it just wasn't? Yeah.
Yeah, like that sense of sort of communion, like without, like when you're just thinking of someone and you feel like they're there and you're there, you're with them.
Yeah.
And somehow that sort of sometimes gets, and sometimes it's fine, and sometimes it gets cut off. So I'm just I would love to develop that a bit more. And I got that I sort of was trying to do some sort of focus. So how could one,
Well,
what's possible here?
yeah. So, I mean, one of the tools that we use a lot in X-Men is to basically expand your zone of awareness out. And so sometimes when you find that you're doing something that's, not really like you or not really like what you would like to be creating, you can basically expand your zone out to be as big as you need to be, not to be the effect of like anything around you. And so for a lot of us, that's probably like way out as big as the earth. And so what you can just ask to do is expand your zone out there. And when you have all of the earth and everything that's going on in your awareness, it's much easier to have your attention on what it is that you require. Because like we have this lie that we need to put our attention on one thing. And when in actuality, it's much easier for us to have our attention on lots of different things. And then we can, the things that require our attention right then and there will present themselves. So, yeah. And if you're a humanoid creator, you need to have more going on in your life, not less, because then, you'll get things done much easier and much quicker.
Cool. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. It's that thing that we sometimes do, right? You're aware of like a million balls that are in the air that you're aware of. And then you say, okay, now I'm going to do this. And the moment I don't know what other people, but the moment I go, okay, now I'm going to do this, is all like the moment I've done, like I'm going to do just this, sort of cutting off from everything else. Oh my God, so much more space. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny because a friend asked me about this as well. And he's like, yeah, but sometimes I do like hyper focus. And I'm like, okay, but if you look at it, when you're hyper focused, are you seriously just doing one thing? Or are you like also, thinking about a million different things and thinking about what else you're going to do, in the future? And, when you choose something, there's always like at least 10 different pathways that it could go. So it's never just one thing, it's like, it just isn't our reality. It just doesn't work.
Yeah. In that moment, I just realized that I was doing avoidance of all the other things that I could be present with. Because,
Yeah.
So it was requiring energy to,
yeah.
Wait a minute, don't bother me right now.
Yeah. And, that's how a lot of people like live their lives, is just from focusing on one thing to avoid all of the things that they don't want to deal with. But like, we just pick that up. We pick so much of that up and we be so much that isn't ours. Like X-Men basically have an awareness of everything that's going on around them for, 8 to 8,000 miles in all directions. And so you pick up all
like
this
fun.
stuff. Yeah. You pick up all of this stuff and it might not actually necessarily be yours. So a question I would say is a good one to ask is, you know, what's my reality here and where do I find it?
Thank you. Oh, someone's face. I'm happy. Thank you for this one-on-one session.
My pleasure.
Cool. So when is the expense class for anyone who's looking for more ease with their crazies?
Well, I have
which are not crazy.
Yeah, I have lots of different classes going on at all times. So I would say just head to sulwynnejones.com and you'll find all the information there. But yeah,
Cool.
yeah,
We'll share the link too.
that would be awesome.
So if anyone, that's where you find more of.
Yeah, and look, if you're interested in, you know, anything that we've spoken about in regards to X-Men, I have a Facebook group which is called Exponentialize with Sul, and it's basically all about X-Men, and it's free to join and it's lots of fun. I do videos in there all the time on different topics and things. So I would say that's a great place to head if you're curious.
I'm joining it right now. So that's for you. That's for you guys too, if you want to.
Yeah.
Exponentialize.
Yes,
We'll
with an
share the
X,
link to that.
not an E, X.
Oh, that's why I couldn't find it. Okay, cool. We'll share the link for you all as well. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being you and being that and being in the world. If there's one thing that you would like to leave everyone with, what would it be?
I would just say, you know, just enjoy, we talked about being you, just enjoy it. Like, even no matter what you've got going on in your life, even if you're, you know, at like the worst point you've ever been or the best point you've ever been, it's like, what if you just allowed yourself to enjoy it every day? Just ask, you know, what can I embrace and actually see the gift of in today, or, you know, this moment? Because it's there all the time. We're just often not looking for it or not
That's
seeing
the whole new podcast as well. We'll have to have you back.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been awesome, and I love your questions.
Thank you.
I love the energy and the title of this podcast. It's very exciting.
Scandalous Delights.
Yeah, I know. It just, like, my mind just goes crazy, you know, with all the possibilities.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thanks everyone for tuning in and listening to us. And there's more coming. Stay tuned. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.